I'm Bambi Francisco with Vader News, and I'm speaking with Joe Kennedy. He is the CEO of Pandora, and we're continuing our discussion about Pandora, Pandora's mobile strategy, and how it's monetizing its mobile and web content. Joe, thanks for sticking around.
My pleasure.
So, Joe, let's talk about the Pandora iPhone app as well as the BlackBerry app. You have 5 million activations on the iPhone app. And 1 million already on the BlackBerry, so congratulations.
Thanks, the numbers are amazing.
When are people listening to their iPhone app? Are they listening in their car? Are they listening during work? And what's the usage like?
You know, it's interesting. The iPhone is unlike internet radio, which is very much an at-work kind of thing in terms of listening on the web. The iPhone is commuting into work, it's home at the evening, it's on the weekends. It's like almost the complete opposite of our web business. 25% of our iPhone users tell us they're listening in the car, which is fantastic. And then the other thing, too, that's unique about the iPhone is you can use an iPod dock with it. And lots of people have, you know, iPod docks, iPhone docks in their kitchen, in their bedroom, etc. And so there's a lot of listening actually over Wi-Fi that's in the home. So very diverse usage and great kind of broadening that it has brought to Pandora in terms of how and when people can listen to it.
And you're generating $1 million in sales in in music sales, 20% coming from the iPhone. So it's doing really well for you.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like and it's really accelerated with the iPhone. I mean, we've always done, you know, a growing amount of music sales, which we love because it supports the people who create the music on the site. But we just recently noticed, like, wow, like we're doing $1 million a month in music sales, and the iPhone has been a tremendous catalyst for that. And it seems like the ability to be listening to a song and to buy it immediately and to download it onto the very device that is your, you know, owned music collection that you walk around with. That's a real winning combination.
So on the iPhone, that you make $200,000 from music sales on the iPhone. Is that the bulk of the business? I believe it's actually advertising on the iPhone. So
right, and remember, like, $200,000 is what we sell, and kind of our piece of that.
And your piece of that is what?
Is typically between 5 and 10%, depending on whether it's Amazon or iTunes. So, in the total revenue standpoint, it's actually a pretty small part of the picture, but great benefit to our listeners and great benefit to the people who create the music, and it gives us a little bit of kind of revenue icing on the cake.
But you're doing more in advertising?
But yeah, certainly advertising is, you know, is 90%, you know, plus of the story. I mean, you do the math of, like, you know, we did 20 million in revenue last year, have some shot at doubling that this year. You know, by contrast, if you take, you know, 5 or 10% of $1 million in monthly ad sales, I'm sorry, monthly music sales, you know, that's, you know, $5,000, $10,000 a month kind of thing.
And that growth, you talked about doubling, so another 20 million, is that coming from iPhone? Is that going to come from iPhone advertising or iPhone sales?
Mobile advertising on the iPhone, on the BlackBerry, soon to be on the Palm Pre, is certainly one of the catalysts for our growth in terms of ad revenue this year. But a big part of the growth is just more web graphic display advertising.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so not the mobile, but actually the web. Talk about the, you know, you're doing a lot in terms of driving a lot of sales to iTunes, and that's become a great service to a lot of your users. And I asked you this on stage, but is Pandora an iTunes discovery engine, or is it a radio station? Do you see people using it more to just listen to music on their mobile device, or do you see it as more as a way for them to discover new music to buy?
I think it's I think it's, at our core, we view it as a radio experience. I mean, it's you know, in radio, like at its very best, kind of defining what radio can be in a broadband connected world, kind of a wonderful serendipitous journey through your favorite part of the music universe. But that said, I think radio has always been the discovery engine that's driven most people's purchases. If you think about, you know, the songs you've owned, the songs you've bought, you know, over the course of your life, probably most of them you heard the first time on radio, and came to know them, came to like them, and said, hey, I want to buy that. And so we view that as kind of part and parcel of a great radio experience and what radio hopefully engenders.
But now it's connected, because it can
And now
be
it's
a radio
connected, and you can do
station.
like, yeah, instead of you're driving down the road and you
Right.
hear a great song and like the FM radio station won't even tell you what the song name is.
And you can just buy it.
Now, like, you can learn everything about the artist, the song, the lyrics, and you can buy the song on the spot. And on an iPhone, you can buy it like right onto your mobile device, which
Now,
is
we
awesome.
talked in the last interview, we talked about how you're thinking about, you're doing a few audio ads, but you know, a lot of people are listening to this stuff while they're driving, so it's hard for them to actually look at the device. And you know, radio stations typically have 16 advertising spots. That's why they can make money from advertising, whereas you don't have that. And do you think that's something that you want to implement, 16 radio spots, or at least 10 radio spots, ad spots, in your in an hour into the Pandora experience?
Yeah, I can't ever see 10 or 16 audio ads an hour on Pandora. That's inconceivable to me. I think we have to work with a smaller set of ads, shorter in length, but recognize that because we are connected, because of the internet, those ads can be more targeted, those ads can be interactive in a variety of ways, and those ads are trackable for the advertiser. And by virtue of those characteristics, to create as much, if not more, value for advertisers, despite the fact that we're not running as many spots and that the spots are shorter.
Okay. One last question regarding what you have to pay out to the industry. So where are royalty fees going? I think you mentioned that, you mentioned before in our interview that you're paying about 3 cents per listener per hour. Do you see them stable for 2009? Do you see them moving up in 2009, 2010? And what is your argument for keeping them 3 cents or below?
Well, the final rates are still being worked out through this extraordinarily lengthy process, but we're optimistic that a reasonable solution will be reached. And, you know, it will be a number less than 3 cents, but it will still be a significant number. You know, we'll pay, you know, tens of millions of dollars in royalties this year. It is by far our most significant cost. And it needs to be kept at a reasonable level because, you know, it's already a very, very significant, the largest part of our cost. If it were to grow much larger, the business simply would not be sustainable. And so, you know, we're okay with paying royalties, and a pretty significant amount of royalties. But this is one of those things where, like, it needs to be the right amount. And the good news is the recording industry and Pandora and many other people in the webcasting world, after a lot of discussion and argument over the past couple of years, you know, seem to be pretty close to, you know, kind of sorting out the differences and finding a reasonable middle ground.
Will your royalty fees account for 70% of your revenue this year?
I wouldn't put a specific number on it. I don't think it's going to be as bad as 70%, but it's by far our biggest cost.
But that's what it was last year?
That's what I don't,
Okay.
It probably was that order of magnitude last year.
And one last question, in a couple of years, where do you see the majority of your sales? Is it going to come from mobile, or is it going to come from the web?
You know, I think over time, that's going to be a really interesting story. I mean, historically, radio is something that is listened to primarily in the car and in the home. Historically, that's 80% of radio listening. And that would point to mobile devices, you know, automotive installations, integrations, and home consumer electronic devices as ultimately becoming the biggest delivery mechanism for Pandora. I think the question is, like, how long will it take to get there? And like, listening at work, listening in an office has grown enormously with the advent of internet radio. So it's gonna change the mix somewhat. So what we're seeing at this point, though, is fantastic growth in all forms of delivery of Pandora, which is great.
Okay. Well, Joe, we wish you the best of luck, and best of luck with the Palm Pre as well.
Thank you. Yeah.
I've been speaking with Joe Kennedy. He is the CEO of Pandora. I'm Bambi Francisco.